able to know who are those who should qualify for the e-receipting and invoicing. That way, we would have been able to solve some of these problems that we are seeing today. Finally, Right Honorable Speaker, Honorable Sireko here has been year in, year out talking about the taxing of the 3% or the 35% on the fabrics. And I thought the Minister of Trade, Finance has taken it seriously. There is an anomaly in the taxation on the fabrics, and which must be addressed. Thank you, Right Honorable.
Thank you, Masava.
Has been
Luther.
Thank you very much, Right Honorable Speaker. One, it concerns one of the key issues that the Minister talked about concerning enforcement. That is, I think, the biggest challenge as to why the traders have come out to demonstrate. You'll find that someone carrying a box from Chikubo, they will harass them and confiscate the box and ask them for a receipt. Yet when you go maybe to a supermarket, because it's optional for you to either go with your receipt or not. By law, you cannot force me as a seller, as a final consumer, to have a receipt, so I can decide to have it or not. So I think that is wrong. URA should stop the way they're implementing, the way they're enforcing, harassing people. Let them target the goods that are coming into Chikubo. Perhaps that will help solve some of these issues because they can track the commodities, these vehicles that bring in goods. Then they can compute the input VAT and they can determine how much these people have sold. So I think this should be handled. Secondly, Right Honorable Speaker, the former law raised an issue that I think we need to take very seriously. We have statutory deadlines as to when we are making budgets. And one of the key things that determine our budget.
I'm joking.
Right Honorable Speaker, one of the key issues that we use while determining the budget is the revenues. And 2 weeks from now, we'll have processed and finished the tax bills as the Finance Committee. So it will be very hard. It will be very hard to come back to it. So I beg with your indulgence that we do handle this issue simultaneously, the revision of the amendment to this.
But we don't do revision in the House before we are given a bill.
Right, Honorable
we need
Speaker.
A proposal.
Right, Honorable Speaker, we are dealing with the income tax and there are clauses that we are amending. And when you look at CAP.
Now that is against the rule. You don't come and discuss what is before the committee. It's not yet in the committee, in the House.
Right, Honorable Speaker, the point I was raising is we are already dealing with a bill, and this is part of the clause that we can look at as a committee. So I'm not debating about it, but I'm proposing that we can deal with it since we are handling this same law. So, but
we have not stopped you from looking at it.
Yes,
look at it and report to us.
The minister had requested for 2 weeks to go and consult. That is what I was proposing, because next week you expect us to present this.
I am waiting to hear from the chairman because I've given you a deadline. Now, I'm not sure whether you're reporting as the chair of the committee, member of the committee, a business person, a shadow, or whichever.
Lastly, it concerns the system, the IFRIS. Right, Honorable Speaker, IFRIS as a system, it does have its own challenges, and we've tried to raise several concerns. Unfortunately, many of them have not been picked up. For example.
Let's have a minute, please. So that we pass at least 2 bills.
Yes, Right, Honorable Speaker, I'm concluding in a minute. For example, this system cannot capture me selling a good at a loss. We have many of our traders who resort to selling some of these commodities, probably because it's going to go bad. Probably this trader needs money to go and clear a loan somewhere, but URA will want you to declare a profit. Once you try to input that you're selling it below the cost price, they will not allow, and they will want you to sell, to input in a system a price that you're not receiving. And in the end, they will want VAT on that. They will come, they will assess your. Thank you very much, Right Honorable.
Thank you, Right Honorable Speaker. Way forward. Every new tax policy in any government is sensitized to the population gradually, which is not happening in our country. They usually use what we call the SWOT analysis. We look at the strengths of the tax, the weakness of the tax, the opportunity of the tax, and then the threats But in our country, Uganda, things are totally different because we are in an abnormal situation. That's why we are having abnormal taxes, since the situation is totally.
Which taxes are abnormal?
Right, Honorable
How
Speaker.
about- You mean this house is abnormal?
No, Right, Honorable Speaker.
You passed those laws.
I'm
You
to-
passed the taxes. What is a problem is the administration of the taxes. You must differentiate between legislation plus collection. That is administration.
Yeah, yes, that's why, Right Honorable Speaker, I was advocating for the gradual sensitization of traders. Uganda is not ending today, neither is it going to shift. So we should give these traders time such that we sensitize them. By the time they come to understand the e-policy, they may be compliant. Thank you, Right Honorable Speaker.
Thank you.
Thank you, Right Honorable Speaker. Right Honorable Speaker, there's one thing I want the Minister of Finance to understand is that when we are discussing GDP in this country, we need to consider most of these traders who are complaining right now. And they are not only in Kampala, they're all over the whole country. Most of the big companies that we know are exempted. Most of them, they don't pay taxes. So a matter that concerns the low-income earners who are trying to earn a living should be treated.
What do we understand by most? Can we just have some 2, 3 of them?
Telecom companies, they pay little tax according to what they earn from
That is
the
not an
locals.
exempt. There's an exemption.
Most of the companies that are owned by foreigners, most especially Chinese and Indians, have tax holidays. They don't pay taxes. And actually, most of them have developed a tendency where you find someone owning a company for only 10 years, upon realizing
Honorable Minister,
that the 10 years are about to elapse, they create other companies.
could we have a list of those companies who are tax exempt? When you give it to us, you will bring them.
Yeah, we shall bring that small list, but I thought that I should clarify. Right, Honorable, I should clarify that
Come.
we sat in this house and agreed that we transfer most of these exemptions in the various tax laws. For example, for transparency purposes, you find these exemptions within the Income Tax Act, the Excise Duty Act, and the various other acts, including stamp duty. So whoever qualifies automatically qualifies upon, meeting the requirements. The requirements are within the law.
We are not saying you've done something wrong. We are saying, give us a list.
Right, Honorable, what I'm simply saying is that probably many people are qualifying, and they automatically qualifying when they file their returns. And with URA, we shall generate that list as to who has qualified and that is meeting that criteria.
We'll wait for that.
For both local and foreign. So the law is not discriminating. In fact, this law is discriminating in favor of the Ugandans because the thresholds are lowered in favor of the Ugandans.
Thank you.
Thank you. Right Honorable Chair, thanks for your indulgence. But again, there's a tendency that has developed in this country. Most of these companies, what they do, upon realizing that the 10 years are about to elapse, they open other new companies. And these people are not aware. And it is deliberate. There are very many companies that we know in Kampala who had some names, but after 10 years, they closed them and they opened other new companies. And they're exploiting Ugandans. So I call upon URA together with finance to wake up and do their work. Instead of them exploiting the low-income earners, who are even, most of them are complaining that they are double taxed. Because most of the traders that we have in Kampala don't have a capacity to import. They buy from companies that have already paid VAT. And they are the same companies that are being exploited by URA because for them, they don't have where to report. So I call upon this house here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Evans, Mehdi, Jonah.
Thank you, Right Honorable Speaker. Right Honorable Speaker, the first issue was VAT threshold, lifting the threshold. This is very key, Right Honorable Speaker. When you look at what the traders are complaining, 150 million shilling, someone who has the capacity to sell 150 million shilling, you'll find that those people or those traders who have that capacity will even go to even those who are owning kiosks. So a simple mathematics, someone who is owning a butcher and he has a capacity of selling 30 kg of meat, a kg of 15,000 shilling, that is 450 shilling per day as sales. So it will amount in a total of like 160 million a year. That very trader will be amounted to pay VAT, which is problematic. So, Right Honorable Speaker, as the ministry is considering the issues of traders, they should lift the threshold up to more than even $1 trillion. I'm sorry, as $1 billion, because this will enable our traders to, one, to have a capacity of paying those taxes. But if you go...
Mehdi.
Just a minute. If you go down and tax those who don't have the capacity to pay the VAT, it will affect the whole system as a country, and this will lead. As a country, we are running a cash economy. You are aware, Right Honorable Speaker?
I'm not aware.
We are running a cash economy, and if traders are closing shops and they are not able to raise the taxes, you'll find that ministers will come here complaining that they don't have money to pay the teachers, the health workers, and this will lead to more strikes going forward. I beg to submit, Right Honorable Speaker.
Thank you, Mehdi.
Thank you, Right Honorable Speaker and honorable colleagues. Honorable colleagues, I would like to draw your attention to the three most important entities in this country towards taxation. I think we are over-blaming Uganda Revenue Authority in exercising its mandate. The issue and the solution lies between the front bench and the Parliament. Ministry of Finance proposes the taxes every single financial year. We sit in this house and we legislate to impose taxes on the people. Right Honorable Speaker, I would like to thank you this time for bringing such level of awareness and the traders for rising up at this critical moment in time because it offers an opportunity. Right Honorable Speaker, the highest burden towards the taxpayers is the number of taxes that on which the number of taxes imposed on them. Uganda is one of those countries, not the country with the highest taxes in the world, but one of those countries with deterrent taxes which are very high, levied by this house. That is why businesses are not able to survive without asking for tax cuts. Therefore, if you to pay every single tax diligently, you'll find that you'll have no single growth as a company. When you have high taxes, definitely you'll have low growth because you'll have low savings for further investments or for future investments. Therefore, we as Parliament should advocate for low taxes that are easy to understand. In that, we shall solve this, we shall create a solution for our traders. Otherwise, continuously sending them to the president will not help, because the solution lies with us here in the House. If you are talking about VAT being at 18%, it is legislated by us. It is us with the powers to lower it to 14, 13, or even 10%, depending, because we have the mandate of our people. But there is a big disconnect between us and the Ministry of Finance. The Minister of Finance and the legislators of the people must box ourselves into a room and say this to ourselves: we need revenue, we need to support a budget. But how do we achieve it? Shall we go for high direct taxes, or we expand the tax base like the Speaker asked? Should someone sell a cow at 4 million shillings and not pay single tax, and someone sells a cup at 1,000 shillings and pays a tax? Is that a fair taxation system? You understand what I'm saying? So, if we don't have an equitable taxation system, should I sell land and get 300 million shillings in form of profit and not pay even 0.5 tax? And someone sells a flask and pays 30% taxes, VAT, excise duty, etc. Or we should go to broaden the tax base, but lower taxes, so we attract many people to pay taxes and also remain with profitability, a gap for profitability that will spur growth. Therefore, I would like to thank you, the House, that for the first time, we are now seated in the House discussing the real economics, where politics meets economics. And this is a taxation and appropriation. Therefore, I would like to request, Right Honorable Speaker, that today might not be the time to debate conclusively the matter of tax. Finally, as I conclude, Right Honorable Speaker, since today is not the time to talk fully about taxation, I request that we constitute ourselves into a committee of the whole House. Not leave it to only the Committee of Finance, so that we talk about taxes, we talk about values, we talk about everything, even subsidiary legislation that we've delegated. Subsidiary legislation is what will involve the gateman, the gatekeeper, URA. Because URA only works on your rate and goes to farm taxes. It's like if you tell a gatekeeper that tell the people that I'm not inside, they'll definitely turn them away.
Thank you.
Because the policy will be coming from you. Finally, Right Honorable Speaker, you've always asked from Ministry of Finance to tell us other sources of NTR. Government companies have been the biggest defaulters of tax, and those choosing to be exempted from taxation, because they also know that there is no sane company in this environment that can be profitable with such taxation. That is why we are here to bail out Uganda Telecom, UPC, Uganda Railways, etc. Because they also New Vision, because they also know that with this kind of tax regime, no single company can break even or even register growth, because this taxation levies a huge burden on those that invest. Thank you very much, Right Honorable Speaker. Honorable
Jana, Law.
Madam Speaker, the first proposal I would like to make is that any tax proposal that comes to this House without evidence that it has been studied extensively, we should start rejecting it. Because if we don't do that, the Ministry of Finance and the people proposing taxes appear to be sleeping, and they just wake up and they think there is land somewhere, let us go and tax it without extensively studying the impact of such taxation on our economy. Secondly, the urgent matter with the traders, I would like to reiterate, is that the instrument operationalizing IFRIS made under delegated authority does have some aspects that are not within the control of the traders. For example, it penalizes you for not maintaining power in your premises. Power is generated, distributed, and connected by a different company. Now, a trader is penalized because power has gone off. Secondly, Madam Speaker, last year or the other year before, government came here and made an amendment. In that amendment, they sought to protect suppliers to government from the cost and penalties and interest associated with VAT. That time, the traders had argued that because they supply government and government has not paid them, and you are required to file monthly returns, and when you file the returns, you are expected now to remit, and you have nothing to remit. Government tactfully came and then secured those class of traders. Now, in this IFRI system, the invoicing system, the traders are arguing that not all the sales or not all the supplies that they make are actually received in cash. So when you file your returns, URA does not recognize that you have not yet collected the money. The moment the monthly deadline for filing passes, penalties and interest accrues. Now, last year, a law was brought here, and we agreed that people who have not paid, companies and individuals who have not paid income tax and the rest, they would waive. The most immediate and relieving remedy for the traders would be for government right now to say we are going to waive or we are going to stop pursuing the penalties and interest and concentrate in recovering the tax until you resolve with the traders on this issue of IFRIs. The second one is on the issue of weighing. Madam Speaker, I listened to arguments of the traders that instead of assessing the quality of the garment I have brought and attaching the value to the quality of the garment, we are using the weighing system. This weighing system also extended to motor vehicle parts, that at URA, they bring the motor vehicles parts, the spares, and the way they charge you according to the weight. Not knowing there are some smaller items like a computer of a motor vehicle may actually be weighing less, but actually costing much more. And then now the part like a rim of a vehicle, it can weigh much and attract more taxes, and when you go to the market, you fail to sell. This has made people who are importing containers, like 10 containers of motor vehicle spare parts, if you go, you find now they cannot even bring one container. So this is something that can be handled administratively. And I implore that the people at URA should take this in good faith. Madam Speaker, I want to end on Article 152. No tax is imposed unless it's under the authority of an act of parliament. Sub-Article 2 says, where we have delegated that authority must report to this parliament periodically as required. I want to go back and implore you, Madam Speaker, that we cannot run away from interrogating this instrument that is now causing a problem downtown. This House should therefore sit and look critically at that instrument, and where we can intervene as a House, we should intervene because we have the original version and the powers for us to levy taxes. I want to implore you that the ministry, if you are honest, bring that instrument here, and then we can discuss and then also advise you as the executive so that you have a regulation that is efficient, that is acceptable, that the traders can find themselves paying taxes willingly.
Thank you. Honorable Jonathan, are you suspicious that what could be charged is not what we approved?
Right, Honorable. For example, we never decided here that we should penalize somebody for not having power, electricity in their premise. But in that regulation, there's a penalty for it. If you don't maintain power, electricity.
So, where did they get a regulation from? Because you get a regulation out of a law that is passed.
Yes, in the Tax Procedures Code, Right Honorable Speaker, we provided powers to the Commissioner General to go and make regulations for better carrying into effect the IFRIS system we agreed in principle, which is okay. But now that the commissioner went and made some provisions that are not in tandem with our thinking at that time, this House now has the duty to intervene on that matter. Where required, we can even recall that instrument and ask the executive to make a better instrument. And it has happened before, and there is no way we can fail to act at this moment.
Okay. No.
Thank you, Right Honorable Speaker. Right Honorable, I'm glad you talked about the issue of brutalizing the traders. It's important that we call government to order. Let's not treat these traders like they are terrorists. In the past, we've had issues with KCCA, the way it interfaces with traders with a very totalitarian hand. It's not acceptable. Yeah, you have a duty, that's important. The traders have got a duty, but they're still citizens. Let's treat them as such. When we mete out a lot of violence against them, then there gets to be a pushback, which is unnecessary, and I'm glad you addressed that matter. Right Honorable, as I did inform you last week, traders came to interact with myself and a couple of members of parliament, and they had critical concerns. And I want to appreciate the minister. Not many people have appreciated you for your statement. I want to appreciate you because for starters, you took time to meet the traders. They have been looking for you people in vain. I'm glad that meeting did happen. Never mind that you're not agreeing. At least there's a start, and hopefully you'll have several engagements so that you get to a meeting of minds, because that has not yet happened as far as the traders are concerned. One of the concerns the traders did have was the question of service delivery, and they put it to us, and I have colleagues who I was with, and they were saying, for starters, we pay heavy taxes, but there is poor service delivery. They told us when they go to hospital, there's no medicine. When they're sick, they've got to go to private hospitals. Their children, they take them to private schools. The roads on which their trucks operate to supply commodities, and then they have to keep going to the garages because the roads are terrible. And so the traders are saying, wait a minute, can we have value for this tax money? And that's not a clarion call for just the traders, but the people of Uganda generally. They're saying they want to pay taxes, but let there be value for this tax money. Two, again raised by these traders, they told us they are bothered when they see how their tax money is used or misused. And they told us, if we can be serious about fighting corruption, there'll be a lot more money available for service delivery. That way we will not be pressing them so hard. Honorable Speaker, the Inspectorate of Government, which reports to this House, produced a report which said on an annual basis, we lose over 10 trillion shillings to corruption. That's a lot of money. Think about what it can do. And so the traders and the people of Uganda are saying there should be value for this tax money. And that's why they are struggling. They're saying, but wait a minute, this money we pay, there's no service delivery, it is stolen. And so there's a real struggle. And that's why you struggle to engage with them because of these issues. Tax waivers. You see, any jurisdiction has got to have a modus operandi for tax waivers. We need to clarify that for ourselves here. There's a proposal which is before the Finance Committee by the Ministry of Finance. There are particular businesses which they are seeking to waive taxes for. And some of the reasons being given are ill health of the proprietors of these businesses to indebtedness of the businesses. The traders are asking, who is not indebted? Those traders, they go to banks, they get loans, and that's why they're up in arms. Their businesses are crumbling, just like many other Ugandans. And so again, I would like to reiterate what colleagues are saying. Can we have that list so that we know who is qualifying and the proper modus operandi? Because if you're saying this business is heavily indebted, let's salvage it. There are several other businesses that are heavily indebted. How are we extending help to them? The other concern that the traders do have, which has been mentioned here, foreign investors. We do need foreign investors as a country, and we should be able to welcome them.
But you see, as we are welcoming them, we are granting them tax holidays. We give them free land. Of late, we're even guaranteeing them money. So all of these incentives, they get. But then they're engaging in retail trade. So traders are saying, wait a minute, these guys have already been cushioned with all these incentives. Why are they now playing in the same league with us? It's a problem which government needs to address. We need the investors. We have availed some incentives to them, but can they play in their league? Because you cannot come from your league based on the incentives we've given you, and now you're engaging in retail, scrambling for the same pennies as the traders. It's not acceptable. Finally, Right Honorable Speaker and colleagues, EFRIS, electronic fiscal receipting and invoicing solutions. I don't want us to attempt to do a census here, but even colleagues here have had some. And yesterday, one of them was saying, I need to understand these things. So I explain it to my voters. Even here, it's a challenge. The traders are saying it is convoluted for them. And that's why they see it as double taxation, triple taxation. What is so hard about government suspending this EFRIS? Because you've given time, 2 weeks. And I don't think 2 weeks is going to be adequate time, but that's what you're proposing. What's hard about suspending it, putting it on hold for even a month? There's nothing you lose as government. So that you do engage properly with the traders, hear out their concerns, and then we find a modus operandi that works. Because you're saying in your statement, you agreed with them, but they are still on strike, not just here downtown Kampala, across the country. So what did you agree with them about? Government. We can put EFRIS to a hold, engage with the traders, come to a meeting of minds, come to a common ground, even on the modus operandi, because they're finding this modus operandi problematic. And that's why they're up in arms. They're not saying we don't want to pay taxes, but they're saying, listen to us. But are we listening? Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Patrick?
Thank you so much, Right Honorable Speaker. Right Honorable Speaker, I associate myself with the submissions of my colleagues. I want to state that the problem we are discussing is actually bigger than we are seeing it. In my view, Right Honorable Speaker, the higher taxes are translating into high commodity prices. The high commodity prices definitely will be accompanied by low purchasing power. The low purchasing power will mean low sales. And of course, if we have low sales, that means we shall have less tax collections. So I want to put it to the Honorable Minister. How about having a fairer tax system so that the cost of commodities is affordable? People will buy more commodities, so we shall be able to get tax from a majority of the public, and that means that our tax base will definitely broaden. But I'm not an economist, but in my view, it doesn't make sense to buy a single commodity where the tax is perhaps 8,000, just stating. And then I also compare with a system where 10 people have bought, but then they are paying tax of 2,000. Where is the net collection higher? I put it to you, Right Honorable.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Right Honorable Prime Minister.
Actually, when you refer what Honorable was saying, we need to build, on top of the taxes, we need to build capacity for our local traders, our local contractors to be able to do the work. The companies that Uganda owns should be able to do its work. The unfortunate bit again with Ugandans, when it's a local company, they try to undermine and say they do substandard work. So we really need to build our own capacities. Can we hear from the minister now that we have spoken?
Thank you so much, Right Honorable Speaker. And I want, first of all, thank you for availing this time to discuss issues pertaining to the revenues of this country. More than often, we've been discussing expenditure. My road, my this, my school, my that. And we have not been discussing where the money comes from to establish or to construct or to deliver that infrastructure. And today has been a very big opportunity for us to discuss issues relating to revenue. When I talk about revenue, I'm going beyond tax to discuss other sources of money that run this country. We can all appreciate that, for example, we have a budget of 52-point-something trillion. And out of that budget, then you have about 29-point-something trillion as tax revenue, which means that you have a huge fiscal deficit. And how have you been funding that deficit? Is by borrowing. And when you borrow, you have to pay back with interest. Where do you get the money to pay back? You use your tax revenues. And after you have paid from your tax revenues, then you remain with very limited discretionary resources from which you actually pay wages, etc. So how to get out of this quagmire is by maximizing your tax revenues. And this is where the devil is, because for a long time, our tax to GDP ratio has been hovering around 13%, far lower than the sub-Saharan average. So in fact, on the continent, we are performing poorer than many, many other countries. You feel that we are overtaxed, but we are not yet able, to mobilize the resources almost equivalent to the sub-Saharan average. And it's a challenge for us because the tax effort is still very low. Now, this IFRIS measure is intended to broaden the tax base. People who have been running away from paying tax, this is when we get them to actually pay tax. And the advantages to this, when you pay VAT, because VAT, unlike other taxes, has got the input and output component, and it's about the value added. It's not that the entire 18%, as stated, affects you. It depends on how you operate your input versus output VAT, and so on the value that is added. So the more you file, the more you take advantages of the VAT system. And the people are running away from this huge opportunity, for them to be able to claim the refunds. They're not claiming these refunds because they have failed to comply with the system. So this IFRIS is there for very good reasons. First to benefit these people themselves, but also to benefit the entire country, our economy, to be able to mobilize resources so that we limit the level of borrowing. Because here we are, in each budget we present here, we say that we want to borrow more than 50% of the budget. But for how long can we go borrowing? We cannot survive like that. At some point, we shall end up totally extinguishing the revenues that we are collecting in terms of debt redemption, interest payments, etc. So I want to thank you, Right Honorable, for this opportunity that we have discussed this, and many speakers here have actually appreciated IFRIS. The challenge is on the implementation of the IFRIS. Now, those are the issues. Of course, for any policy or policy implementation, there will be challenges. And it's important that we get this kind of feedback. So this strike has offered an opportunity to get feedback on the performance of IFRIS. Let me make the following clarifications. Because this IFRIS is largely about VAT. Now, VAT was introduced, is not a new tax. It was introduced in 1996. I don't know how many years those are. And IFRIS, as an administrative mechanism, was introduced in 2019, but we did not implement it because of COVID. So we started implementing IFRIS in 2021 after COVID. And this IFRIS, for the benefit of Ugandans who don't know about IFRIS, is simply a system. It is not a tax. It's a system that monitors business transactions, primarily sales and VAT paid on sales. So we are monitoring your sales versus the VAT paid on those sales. So in short, IFRIS is not a tax, because I've been hearing people saying the tax is too high. You know, VAT was passed here so many years ago, and it has been in place for very many years. So the complaint should not necessarily be about VAT, you know, because the tax has been with us for many years. Now the problem is now the administration of that tax, the enforcement to make sure that that tax is paid. Right Honorable, I did not stand up to interrupt anybody when the entire House was presenting. Can I be allowed the time to respond?
Continue.
Thank you very much, Right Honorable. Could the member sit down, because I get intimidated. Right Honorable, I want to submit that there are several IFRIS channels, including the EFDs. That's a short acronym for electronic fiscal devices, which we are using to implement IFRIS. And that device costs 1.1 million shillings. I had people putting it at 1.9. If you are getting it at 1.9, don't go to those sources. The other one is a mobile app that are very user-friendly to the traders. In fact, you can use your phone to conduct this IFRIS. So URA rolled out IFRIS in a phased manner. It is not just starting today. Starting with the manufacturers. The manufacturers, actually most of them are already using IFRIS. Then we used it on importers and large distributors and wholesalers. So it has been implemented. And now we are down there in Ichikuwo. So it has been a phased process. We're only hitting a slight snag with the traders in Ichikuwo. And you'll not hear complaints in other areas where we have applied it. And people are really appreciating it. You have not heard the manufacturers complain. In fact, they are appreciating us for implementing this system, because they are able to pay their input VAT and collect their output VAT. You know, they are enjoying the benefits, and I'll come to the benefits. So we have sensitized the taxpayers for over 2 years, including popular campaigns, which we have also been seeing on TV, like Empire Receipt Young. You know, you have been seeing that, those jingles on TV, you have been hearing Empire Receipt. You know, it has been there, and it has been, you know, popularizing IFRIS. Maybe some people have not seen it yet. We have to continue, you know, popularizing it. And we believe that over time, people will get to appreciate IFRIS. You know, there's a lot of teaching about Jesus. For the last 2,000 years, we are teaching, people are teaching about Jesus. And up to now, people are teaching about Jesus, Nabi Muhammad, you know, Swala Lewa Tanama, you know, they have been, I withdraw that one. I have withdrawn.
Yeah, it's withdrawn. So summarize, Honorable Minister.
Madam Speaker, I want to further submit that very recently, in the last 3 months, we have trained over 20,000 taxpayers in this central business district, Honorable Nsereko's constituency, including the traders in Ichikuvu. And the CG, the Commissioner General, has actually held over 5 meetings with the traders, their leadership, in the last 3 months. He has been going there to talk to them and educate them about IFRIS. And this has also included door-to-door sensitization and holding meetings to ensure adoption and compliance with IFRIS. And we shall continue training the stakeholders by opening taxpayers' service offices close to them in Ichikuvu and many other areas like members have proposed. We have service offices all over the country where taxpayers can get taxpayer services and information on URA systems and taxes. So it is not true that this is going to be only in Ichikuvu, like some members were indicating. We also shall continue with the engagements on TV, radio, and social media. It is there. So IFRIS can be used even in the absence of internet, using the offline mode. And this is available on all IFRIS channels and platforms. So don't get worried, Honorable Du, when the power goes off. These channels are available. We knew about this, the challenges of power supply in this country. IFRIS enforcement that we are talking about, the current challenges we are talking about started in 2024. URA undertakes to perform its operations with professionalism and due care. So they will continue to behave with, and with this advice that we have collected from here, I'm very sure that we are going to improve on the way we collect the taxes, and we really appreciate. So all issues of unethical behavior shall be investigated and handled appropriately. We've been listening to the complaints that have been raised by traders and your good selves. So we shall definitely investigate those and see what to do with them. Only, but let me also mention, Right Honorable, that only VAT registered taxpayers are gazetted to use IFRIS. Only VAT registered, and you saw the threshold is 150 million shillings, and traders are demanding that it should be 1 billion shillings. But certainly by doing that, you can imagine how much money would be lost, in terms of tax revenue. We need to sit down and discuss that one extensively. So we have 32,000 for the record, VAT registered taxpayers, and this is very important information. However, the IFRIS register has 56,000 taxpayers. 24,000 taxpayers have voluntarily adopted IFRIS because of the benefits of IFRIS, which include 24,000 voluntarily adopted IFRIS without being pushed because of the advantages, and I'll mention them. The simplified record keeping, very simple. You don't even need auditors. Accountants waste money with accountants. Simplification of tax filing. People have been struggling with tax filing, employing tax experts, etc. In this case, you do not need those tax experts. Since it allows for pre-population of the return forms. The third one is accurate tax assessment. since URA has a visibility of the business transactions. URA is monitoring those transactions, you know, so you get accurate tax assessment. URA does not get back to you to do all these detailed audits, you know, where they end up penalizing you very heavily. And then finally, the expedited refunds. We make a lot of refunds, especially on the VAT. Once you have this system, you can be assured that within a very short period of time, you'll get your refunds. Because sometimes you end up paying more VAT than the VAT you are collecting. So in that case, you get refunds. You know, if we are to generate the list for you of people who are benefiting from these refunds, the list is really long, and the people are taking advantage of that. So taxpayers not registered for VAT are not required to use IFRS. Right Honorable Speaker, I think the argument that investors should not actually engage in hawking and retail trade. It's true that these people should not be licensed to do retail trade. And the laws exist. I think it has been a matter of enforcement. So we shall all urge the Ministry of Trade to enforce the law. In fact, even the Investment Act had a negative list of areas where investors should not, you know, get involved. And one of them is retail trade. It was on a negative list for a long time. I worked for the UIF for a long time. And during that time, we never licensed anybody to do trading. But you know that trading licenses are issued by the various local governments. So there has got to be instructions to these agencies to ensure that they don't license these. I think I was given the opportunity to continue uninterrupted.
Right, Honorable Speaker. The Honorable of you just wants to hide behind your protection all the time, and we appreciate it. But without subsidiary legislation, you're only giving us lip service. Bring the subsidiary legislation here. Let us as Parliament go through it, lay it on the table of Parliament, because whatever you say impacts us directly. Because without legislation saying that you're barred from doing such and such a business, it will only be promissory. Even those you send to enforce will be using nothing.
Maybe let's hear from
He has never tabled any subsidiary legislation, even including that of penalties.
Let's hear about it from Trade.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and thank you, colleagues, for your input in the way we can find a solution to the current strike, but also in a way to facilitate the businessmen and women of our country. We did pass competition bill here, which was assented by the President in February. And this bill, among other things, will clarify the relationship between a manufacturer, a wholesaler, and a retailer. And to do this, we need to do regulations. I want to inform the House that we are now in the process of making regulations to the Competition Act, and they will be ready because it needs consultation. They will be ready within the next 2 months from now, because we need to consult in the next